The door exploded inward before I even got my boots off. I dropped my bag and threw myself sideways into the wall as a chunk of metal the size of a dinner plate sailed past my head and buried itself in the ceiling. Smoke rolled across the room. Somewhere in the haze, someone was laughing. This was my first 10 seconds in my new apartment. My name is Dylan Marsh, and 3 hours earlier, I had been a broke courier pilot standing outside a rental office on Kesson Station, staring at a listing that made no sense. A 4-bedroom unit, fully furnished, docking bay access, for less money than a storage locker on the lower ring. The landlord, a nervous little man named Otto, had tried to talk me out of it twice. I should have listened. Now I was lying flat on scorched flooring, while 4 alien women fought each other, in what used to be my living room. The tallest one was built like a wall with muscles, gray skin, twin blades in each hand, moving so fast I could barely track her. Across from her, a smaller woman with deep violet scales and glowing eyes was throwing what looked like knives made of crystal, each one leaving a trail of green sparks. A third stood on the kitchen counter, wrapped in armor plating, calmly reloading some kind of cannon, like this was a normal Tuesday. The fourth, the one closest to me, had 4 arms and was laughing so hard she could barely aim her weapon straight. I did not move. I did not breathe. I just watched my security deposit go up in smoke. Then the 4-armed one noticed me. She stopped mid-laugh, tilted her head, and said something in a language my translator chip hadn't loaded yet. The fighting paused. All 4 of them turned to look at me, still lying on the floor like a man who had given up on his life choices. The tall gray one lowered her blades first. She studied me, the way you'd study a bug that wandered into the wrong room. "You are the new tenant," she said, her voice flat and unimpressed. "I am," I said, and my voice cracked a little. "Is this a bad time?" The violet-scaled one snorted, which I would later learn was her version of a laugh. The one on the counter set her cannon down with a heavy clank and hopped off, walking toward me with her arms crossed. "Every other human who lived here left within a week," she said, usually crying, sometimes on fire. "I am not planning on catching fire," I said, still on the floor. That got a real laugh out of the 4-armed one. She reached down and hauled me up by one arm like I weighed nothing, which, compared to her, I probably didn't. I learned their names over the next hour, mostly because nobody bothered to explain anything, and I had to ask 3 times each. The tall one was Calith, former blood duelist of a clan I had never heard of, kicked out for refusing to kill someone she was supposed to kill. The violet-scaled one was Isra, a poison specialist who used to work for a syndicate before deciding she liked being alive more than being feared. The one with the cannon was Bran, an ex-Void Marine who didn't talk much, but apparently communicated mostly through property damage. And the 4-armed one, the loud one, was Toli, a war orphan turned mercenary who had seen more combat before the age of 20 than most soldiers see in a lifetime. None of them looked at me like I belonged there. All of them looked at me like I was a countdown timer for how long it would take me to run. I did not run, mostly because I had nowhere else to go, and partly because, underneath the fear, something in me refused to be scared off that easily. The first week was strange, in a way I didn't have words for. I kept my head down. I cooked simple meals in the one corner of the kitchen that wasn't damaged, ate quietly, paid my share of the rent early, and tried to stay out of whatever competition the 4 of them were always running. They sparred constantly. They argued about who could carry more weight, who could go longer without sleep, who had the better reflexes. Chairs did not survive long in that apartment, neither did most of the dishes. But they started noticing the strange things I did. I fixed a busted door hinge with tape and a bent piece of scrap metal because I didn't want to bother anyone. Yusra watched me do it, with the kind of focus most people reserve for watching surgery. "You could have just left it broken," she said. "Didn't feel right," I said. "Someone might trip." She didn't say anything else, but she watched me fix 3 more things that week. Tolly found it hilarious that I meal prepped my food in advance, portioning it into containers like a man planning for a war that would never come. "You eat the same thing 5 days in a row," she said, poking one of my containers with a claw. "It's efficient," I said. "It's sad," she said, and then ate half of it anyway. Bran didn't talk to me for the first 10 days. Then one evening she sat down across from me while I was watching an old human show about people competing to bake the best cake, and she just stared at the screen in complete silence for 40 minutes. "Nobody dies," she finally said. "No," I said, "it's just cake." She looked genuinely disturbed by this concept, then asked if she could watch the next one too. Kalith was the hardest to reach. She tested me constantly, not with violence, but with small challenges. She'd leave a heavy container in the hallway and watch to see if I struggled carrying it. She'd ask blunt questions about fear and pain, watching my reactions closely, like she was trying to solve a puzzle I didn't know I was part of. One night, after I lost an arm wrestling match against her so badly my elbow ached for 2 days, she sat back and studied me with narrowed eyes. "You knew you would lose," she said. "Obviously," I said. "You could probably break my arm without trying." "Then why compete?" she asked. "Because giving up before trying felt worse than losing," I said. She didn't respond to that, but something in her expression shifted. It wasn't respect yet, but it wasn't dismissal either. 3 weeks in, everything changed. I was heading back from a supply run near the lower docks when I noticed 2 men following me. Not station security, not anyone official. The kind of men who wore mismatched armor and carried weapons that weren't registered. They had been watching our building for days, I later learned, because word had spread that 4 former mercenaries were living in one unit, and someone with an old grudge had decided that made for an easy target while they were out, and I was the only one home. They cornered me in a narrow maintenance corridor, 2 levels below our apartment. No cameras, no witnesses, just me and 2 men who clearly thought a human courier pilot would be the easiest problem to solve before dealing with the real threats upstairs. I had no weapon. I had no training. What I had was a toolbox I'd been carrying for repairs, and a very simple thought. I was not going to make this easy for them. I swung the toolbox before they finished talking, catching the first one across the jaw hard enough to stagger him. I didn't fight like someone who knew what they were doing, because I didn't. I fought like someone who refused to just stand there and take it. I ducked. I shoved. I threw anything within reach, and I shouted loud enough that the sound carried up the ventilation shafts. By the time Kalith and Bran came crashing through the corridor, drawn by the noise, both men were already regretting every decision that had led them there. I was bruised, breathing hard, and standing over a dropped weapon with my toolbox still in hand. Kalith looked at the scene, then at me, for a long moment. "You didn't wait for us," she said. "I didn't have time to wait," I said. She almost smiled, almost. After that night, something between us settled into place. Isra started leaving small pouches of medicine outside my door whenever I came home tired, without ever mentioning it directly. Tolly stopped testing my strength and started including me in her stories, actual stories, about her past, the kind she didn't tell strangers. Bran began sitting beside me every evening for that same baking show, quiet and steady, like it had become something she looked forward to. And Kalith, the one who trusted no one, started walking the same supply route I did, never saying why, always just happening to be there. None of them ever said they respected me outright. Warriors like them didn't work that way, but I noticed the shift in small things. The way Tolly saved me a share of food before eating it all herself. The way Bran started teaching me basic defensive movements, patient in a way I hadn't expected from someone built for war. The way Isra explained, quietly one night, why she had left her old life behind, trusting me with something she hadn't told the others. I came to that station broke, tired, and looking for the cheapest room I could find. I never expected to end up living with four of the fiercest warriors in known space. Women who had survived wars, betrayals, and things I still don't fully understand. But somewhere between the broken furniture, the strange meals, and that one night in the maintenance corridor, this stopped being just a cheap room. It became something closer to home. And for the first time since I left Earth, I wasn't standing alone.